Howdy friends, this is Pelican Man bringing you another Death and Taxes video, here with my first list after Modern Horizons 3's drop. This is very close to the list I've been running recently with a couple of upgrades. By recently I mean recently in paper for myself, so you guys won't have seen what's going on here, but this is what I'm currently on. So the mana base, pretty self-explanatory. We're mostly white mana thanks to White Orchid Phantom with 4 Ghost Quarters, because White Orchid Phantom means that we can kind of run our opponents out of basics and use these strip mines sometimes. Also, they do just pair with Flagstones to become white sources anyway. We have an Elegant Parlor, which you can tutor for off the Flagstones for a free surveil, since the planes this search for is going to come in tap anyway. And Eiganjo Castle to mostly just protect Phelia, and also it's just better than the 7th planes. And then instead of the 8th and 9th planes, Eiganjo Seat of the Empire also kind of protects Phelia, and then anything blocking it we can just block with Eiganjo Seat of the Empire's channel ability, which Phelia reduces the cost of by 1. Then for the spells, we've got 4 Aether Vial, pretty standard, 4 Give of Runes, pretty standard, 3 Ephemerate. I've been on 2 in the past. Some people are up to 4 now in Death and Taxes, which I don't hate, but currently I don't feel like I have the room for it, and it is sometimes just a dead draw. As we were talking about, the 4 White Orchid Phantom, this blows up your opponent's lands, which is pretty strong. Flying First Strike is very relevant on a 2 mana 2/2, and we can also destroy our own Flagstones to ramp us, because the White Orchid Phantom will give us the land to replace it, and the Flagstones gives us the land to replace itself. We've got Phelia as maybe the strongest card in the deck currently. Letting us flicker things when it attacks just gives us so much free value. We get to block a lot of lands with White Orchid Phantom, tutor more cards with the Recruiter of the Guard. It just is an all-star, can move our opponent's stuff out of the way for us. Very, very good card. The Stoneforge Mystics are here again, a playset. So you'll see no Leon and Arbiter, no Thalia, so those are gone. Stoneforge Mystic is the next Taxes staple that I think I want to test without, but for the time being, the clock that Kaldra provides is just too important for the deck. So currently I'm still testing with it, but I could see replacing it. We've got a 1 of Samwise, a 1 of Charming Prince, and a 1 of Flickerwisp, which kind of give us this flicker package that we can tutor for with Recruiter, that we can use with Aether Vial to cheat on Solitude or just get reused flicker effects. Samwise is interesting because we get tempted by the ring, so that gives us additional value sometimes. In our Stoneforge package, we have Lion Sash, which is just nice main deck Grave Hate that also is just good in the grindy matchups to grow into a big creature on its own. Maul the Skyclaves as a nice way to give our threats some evasion, and Kaldra Compleat again as just our best clock. We have 3 Recruiter of the Guard. I've seen some lists testing 4. I think it might be overkill because you have to play it and then do whatever you tutor for the next turn unless you have Aether Vial. So very good card that I'm very happy to have, but I'm not sold on a 4th copy yet. We've got 4 Witch Enchanters, which really should be over here with the rest of our mana base. It can come in untapped if you pay 3 life as a land, or it's a 4 mana 2/2 body with Disenchant stapled on, which is kind of a fine rate. We were happy with that at 3 mana with Lauren of the Third Path, so pretty reasonable. And it also pairs nicely with Flickerwisp in that if we play it as a land, we can cast Flickerwisp, which can target lands, target this land, and then it comes back as the creature side. Very, very nice. And we've also got 4 Solitude as normal, which is another reason to be on Ephemerates, which is why I was on 2 in the previous builds, and the 3rd in the new build, just to kind of scam our Solitude into play. And the last card to talk about is the 1 of Aven Interrupter. This is here as a tutor target with the Recruiter of the Guard, obviously. It is a card that is fine to run in the main deck. It's like a card that we were playing in the previous meta that was just an okay card, and it's close to playable regardless. But the fact that spells your opponent's cast from graveyards or exile cost 2 more to cast means that Ruby Storm has a really tough time comboing through this. So this is my main deck out to Ruby Storm while also having flexibility in other matchups. And speaking of a flexible out, our last card is actually Skyclave Apparition, which is not the best answer to the One Ring, but it is an answer to the One Ring that also happens to do stuff in a lot of other matchups. So I have it here as a way to game 1 tutor for an answer to the ring before I bring in specific sideboard hate for those decks, but it also is fine against other creature decks as just a removal spell or against planeswalkers or what have you. So Skyclave is just a nice tutor target that is similar to Aven Interrupter, close to playable in the main deck anyway, but also happens to hose some important cards in the current metagame. Now, onto the sideboard. So first off, we've got a bunch of tutor targets. So we've got Containment Priest, which stops non-token creatures entering the battlefield if they weren't cast, so it stops things like Reanimator. It also means we can attack with a Phelia, blink our opponent's creature out of the way, and it won't come back because it's entering the battlefield and not being cast. It also does stop us ephemerating and Aether Vialing things, but the matchups where we're bringing it in tends to be to stop Court of Calling, things like that. We've got Ethersworn Canonist as a 2 mana answer to Ruby Storm, so if we play a turn 1 Aether Vial and then turn 3 cast Recruiter, we can vial in Ethersworn Canonist to stop Ruby Storm. That's a pretty important thing to have access to, as well as just being a reasonable card in other matchups. We've got Kataki, War's Wage, to make affinity, sacrifice majority of their board. Very powerful tutor target. We've got 2 Sanctifier in deck. This is because we're not running Rest in Peace. We are just running these as kind of our grave hate. Also just good against the black removal decks, like the mono black Necrodominant scam deck, things like that. Just good protection, good threat, good to put equipment on and just beat your opponent up with. And the last one is Guardian of Faith. So a 3-mana 3/2 Flash Vigilance. When it ETBs, any number of other target creatures you control phase out. This is to protect from sweepers. We've also got 2 Flare of Fortitude to protect from sweepers. So your permanents gain hexproof and indestructible. It also stops you from dying to like certain combo kills, like Grape Shot combo kills from Ruby Storm, although you'll still potentially die to empty the Warrens. The difference is Guardian of Faith, because it phases things out rather than giving them indestructible. Your indestructible creatures from Flare will still die to Toxic Deluge and All Is Dust. So Guardian of Faith protects against those sweeps specifically, while also being tutorable. So kind of nice to have access to that. And then to pair with our tutorable Containment Priest, we've got 2 copies of Hallowed Moonlight. This is in the kind of Path to Exile slot. Hallowed Moonlight does the same thing as Containment Priest, but only for return, but it also stops tokens. So if your opponent's going off with Nadu and they're making trying to make a bunch of insects with Spring Heart and Nantuko, Hallowed Moonlight turns that off, while also still being an answer to Court of Calling and things like that. And it cantrips, which is kind of fun. This is probably my favorite thing to do with Phelia, is like attack, blink away your opponent's creature, then Hallowed Moonlight, you draw a card, their creature's gone forever. Pretty fun stuff. We've got 2 Wrath of the Skies. This is because Boros Energy, I played a league before this and went 2 and 3. My first 3 matches were all losses to Boros Energy, because I guess people decided that was a fun deck to play, so I just kept versing in the league. And I just lost a lot to Ocelot Pride plus Guide of Souls plus Ajani. So Wrath of the Skies is now 2 on the board to fight that, to fight Elves, to fight Affinity, to fight like Death Shadow. I think this card's good. It does end up blowing up some of our board, but generally doing it for X is 1. So when there's like Aether Vial, Giver of Runes, and if we know we're doing it, we can kind of play around it. Sometimes we do it for X equals 2, and we are pretty heavy on 2 drops, but in the matchups where we need it, it is a sacrifice I think I'm willing to make, because if you're willing to do it and lose like your Failure in your Stoneforge or whatever, you would dying if you weren't doing it. We have 2 Disruptor Flutes. This is the sideboard hate for the Wandering that, you know, Skyclave is carrying the torch game 1, then post board you get to bring Disruptor Flute and actually hurt the Wandering. They cast it, you flash in Disruptor Flute in response. They still get the protection, but they don't get to draw cards off it ever. So they've just like time walked both of you rather than just time walking you, you know? Also just good at turning off like Primeval Titan from Amulet Titan. You can sometimes name stuff from Ruby Storm to slow them down, because it makes the thing you name cost 3 more to cast. So very, very powerful sideboard card. I'm kind of sold on this one. I was running a Phyrexian Revoker as a tutorable target as well, but I did end up cutting that, mostly to fit in the Wandering Emperor, which is maybe a little too cute, but I had the Wandering Emperor in my sideboard a lot. If you've watched my videos, you've seen the one over my sideboard a lot. And something I liked doing with it in the previous metas was you would flush it in your opponent's end step, activate her. In your turn, activate her again, cast Flickerwisp, flicker her, so she comes back in the end step, and because she entered the battlefield this turn, you can activate her loyalty abilities anytime you cast an instant. So you can activate her again in the end step when she comes back from the Flickerwisp. Again, maybe too cute, but very fun to do. We get to do that with Phelia now, because Phelia you can activate the Emperor in your first main phase, go to combat, attack with Phelia, blink out the Emperor, she comes back in the end step as a new game object, so you can activate her again. I love being able to abuse this ability, this combination with Phelia, so I am playing the one of Wandering Emperor in my sideboard. This is a slot that maybe could be something else if you're not a fan, but it is something I'm trying to test out. So this is the 75. This is what I'm liking at the moment for MH3. So let's see how we go in a league. All right, match number 1 against Mono Black Scam. Keep an opening hand. It's a bit iffy because we have Giver of Runes into 2 drops with a tap land, but thankfully our opponent thoughts his away the Giver of Runes, making a choice easy, and we surveil the Aether Vial into the bin. Our opponent has Sorin of House Markov for turn 2. Our opponent gets in with Sorin. Our plan is to just flash in Failure in the end step of the turn 2 cycle. Here, rather than playing the White Orchid Phantom with no good targets to get value out of Failure, we just attack Failure and blink out Sorin to get through. Our plan is here to hold up, be able to pitch cast Ephemerate Solitude, or just Ephemerate the Failure, effect from removal. Our opponent has the Gravestone response because they've tapped out and can't possibly use a Not Dead After All effects. We're going to pitch cast Solitude to get rid of both of their threats and let them take whatever they want from what's left in our hand, and they choose the Skyclave Apparition, which is fine by us. So here we get to play out the White Orchid Phantom and take away our opponent's dual land, because at this point I wasn't sure if they were mono black or black red, even though black red scam's not as popular. So I do flicker out my White Orchid Phantom, just decide to deck in by getting rid of my own Elegant Parlor, and here we're just getting in for more damage. Our opponent doesn't appear to be doing much over there, so we are just attacking and seeing what they've got. Turns out they do have an Orc Bone Masters to try and take out our Solitude, and I do decide to cast the Solitude from my hand, just deck my Solitude in play, leaving our opponent with not much left to go with in play. And with that, our opponent scoops up the game. I'm not sure what was in their hand. They had 4 cards and 4 mana in play, but with our unimpressive board, we managed to win that game. So let's go on to game number 2. It's likely our opponent was on mono black and not black red. I've decided the White Orc Phantoms were very good, so we're cutting those and trimming the 1 of Charming Prince, Aven Interrupter, Flickerwisp, and the third Recruiter of the Guard, even though it is finding grinding matchups. There is just a lot of fun to bring in. Also trimming an Aether Vial, bringing in Wandering Emperor, 2 Flare of Fortitude, Guardian Faith, 2 Sanctifier, 2 Moonlight, and a Containment Priest for game number 2. Draw again game 2. We keep a hand that is just Stoneforge Mystics and a Solitude and 4 lands, which is kind of weak, but at least we have lands to play spells, so we get Gravescan, we can still have a game plan, and we kind of are thinking that Stoneforge Mystic getting Kaldra might be a good enough win condition, or pitching Solitude to a Grave might work. They do have the Thoughtseize on turn 2 and do take away Stoneforge Mystic, so at this point I still hadn't seen enough from them game 1 to really know what they're on, so I decided for the safe bet now without the backup Stoneforge to go for the Lion Sash to potentially be able to deal with any of their recursion from Scam. So we get the Lion Sash, they do have removal for the Stoneforge, and they have a Necrodominance to back it up, and they do put themselves pretty low, which is a very scary proposition for us, including a Soul Spike there. So I decided to just play out the Giver of Runes and the Lion Sash, see what removal they've got. They do take down the Giver, and they do grief us. Unfortunately for our opponent, they try and Malakiri Rebirth their grief, not realizing that Necrodominance means that it will go to exile rather than the graveyard, so it will not come back from their Undying effect. So here I'm just trying to thin my deck with Flagstones and Surveil with my Elegant Parlor. I'm going to use Lion Sash to grow a bit, and this is our win condition now, is just growing our Lion Sash as big as possible and trying to kill them with their own Necrodominance. Our opponent does have a Shouldered, which is pretty scary. They do get to draw a lot of cards, gain a lot of life, but they do scoop it up because they do know about our Maul the Skyclaves from the Thoughtseize, and Maul giving Lion Sash flying is exactly lethal to finish them off here. So that's a quick 2-0 against Mono Black Necrodominance, or Mono Black Scam, even though we didn't really do too much impressive these games, but our opponent just seemed to stumble and falter all along the way. So our aggression that game meant that Necrodominance was a liability for them rather than being the huge card advantage engine it normally can be. With that, let's go on to match number 2. Here for match number 2, and we are versing Bant Nadu. We see a 7 that was an O-lander and a 6 that's a 1-lander. We are going to risk it and keep just off the strength of the Solitude Scam with Ephemerate, and we have a Give Runes to play in the meantime. The fact that they're on Bant Nadu means this was probably a loose keep, but going to 5 in the dark didn't feel great either. So here they have Wall Roots and Springheart and Antuko. Wall Roots giving them mana, and Springheart and Antuko being a key combo piece is enough for me to fire off my Solitude Scam here, because I do just want to get into play and start threatening them, because if I keep missing land drops, I'm not going to be able to do much here, and I do need to, if I do draw a land, pay out my threats as soon as I can, so I wouldn't have much time to scam the Solitude anyway. And our opponent's just got Springheart and Antuko and Bristly Bill to follow up, and I missed the land drop, just had another Give Runes. Match isn't going anywhere in our favor anytime soon. They do have a Court of Calling for the Nadu, activate a Keener on the Nadu to trigger it, and meanwhile, I'm out here still just missing land drops and just programming the Solitude to get through the damage, because at this point, this game is basically over. I just have to hope my opponent can miss for a bunch of turns. They do get to keep activating Akina, and they did find the Shuko, so this game is over. I did let my opponent go through the combo just because I wanted to see what their win condition was, because I know this deck's very popular after the Pro Tour, but specifically the Magic Online lists have to run Thassa's Oracle in order to win in time, while the Pro Tour list did not, so I thought there was a chance my opponent might be emanating the Pro Tour list and might not realize it, and they do win this game through Bristly Bill, just landfall triggers, growing their creatures, and then Bristly Bill doubling the counters and everything. They win through combat, so that does hint to me that maybe they're not Thassa's Oracle, so that's information I really wanted for game number 2. So let's stop watching this and move on to game number 2. So sideboarding against Bant Nadu, I decided to trim the 3rd Ephemerate, the 4th Give Runes, and all 4 White Orchid Phantoms. None of these are particularly impressive. They don't have removal, so I don't really care about Giver. I'm not sure what value I'm getting for Ephemerate other than just like Solitude, which is already kind of mid against them, but kind of necessary. And Phantoms, I don't really feel like I can disrupt their mana too much. But Disrupt the Flutes, turning off Shuko and stuff feels very good, and Containment Priest and Hallowed Moonlights are here to stop their Horde and also just access to removal in combination with Phelia, and the Canonist because their combo involves casting a lot of spells all at once. So that is our sideboarding, and let's get on to game number 2. So game number 2, we are on the play. We see a kind of middling hand. It has the Hallowed Moonlight for interaction. It's got Giver early, so I do decide to keep. I could maybe mulligan for more interaction, but I do have a sideboard card, so that potentially could get us out of the jam here. We really need to draw some creatures to work with this Giver Runes and to maybe combo with this Ephemerate. This is why I trimmed an Ephemerate, because their hands sometimes end up looking like this. They've just got a lot of stuff going on over there that's going to be hard for us to deal with. I end up ghost courting my Flagstones as a way to thin my deck and to get a Surveil, and Aether Vial is not what we need. We just need creatures, we just need gas here, and instead we find Ghost Quarter, so we're still left doing not much of anything here. So they do have the Shuko, and it looks like they have the Court of Calling here, so we are very happy to have Hallowed Moonlight, but it draws us into Kaldra, so that's kind of not great. They do choose to use the opportunity of call. They could choose not to get anything, but instead they get Wall Roots just to thin it out of their deck. Draw Stoneforge, but at this point I'm happier using Witch Enchanter to block the Shuko, because now the Ephemerate lets the Witch Enchanter start taking down things like the Hail Might and the Springheart and Antuko as well. I could have used the Witch Enchanter to take down the Spring Hunt and to go first, but if they happen to draw Nadu, the Shuko is the scary thing first off. So we are going to Stoneforge here, get the Lion Sash out of a deck, so next time we'll be able to deploy Kaldra and start beating in. I chose not to Ephemerate straight away because I wanted to bait my opponents casting the Nadu, so they did do that here, so now I will take down the Spring Hunt and to go with the Ephemerate on the Witch Enchanter. And it looks like our opponent didn't have anything to follow up with that, they just had the Nadu. So I will Ephemerate the Witch Enchanter and take down the Haywire White because it is threatening to stop our Kaldra. Unfortunately, that does trigger Nadu, but we need to get Kaldra into play and start getting our clock online. And we do have Containment Priest here. It would have been nice if maybe we had these in the other order, if we had this first and the Moonlight second, because the Moonlight can stop tokens off Spring Hunt and Tuco, while the Priest can't. So our opponent has Teferi here, so we have no choice but to throw the Containment Priest down just to stop them being able to call calling at all until they deal with it. And they choose to use Teferi to Death Germ, which makes a lot of sense, and they get in with the Nadu. So now our game plan has become a beatdown plan again. So I use the Stoneforge to put the Maul down onto the Containment Priest, so the Containment Priest can attack through, and I get the Lion Sash into play, being able to hold up ability to hinder their ability to do endurance loops and also just to have a threat. Unfortunately, our opponent does have the Force of Vigor. I choose to use the Give to protect the Lion Sash. Maybe I was meant to protect the Containment Priest to stop them trading off here, but they choose not to trade off anyway, which is great. I had used to Give to protect the Witch Enchanter to make sure the Teferi went down. And our opponent has Summoner's Pact for Spring Hunt and Tuco here with a Sylvan Safekeeper. The unfortunate thing is I tapped down my Ghost Quarter, otherwise I could have destroyed the Arbor in response to them trying to bestow Spring Hunt and Tuco onto it, but I believe if I had the Ghost Quarter up, they would be smart enough to not bestow onto the land that I could kill. But we are put in a very tough situation here. I left white up to activate Lion Sash just there, as you saw. We are put in a very tough situation here where they have a Summoners Pact they have to pay for, and they can pay for it with their lands and their creature in play, and I do have a Ghost Quarter and a Samwise that can replay a Ghost Quarter, so they are going to get to start using Sylvan Safekeeper with their Nadu to go off. I choose to try and use the Samwise with the Ghost Quarter, forgetting that I've waited till my end step so I can't replay the Ghost Quarter, but my opponent's able to start using Sylvan Safekeeper and start going off. They only have 8 minutes left on clock, and because of my Lion Sash and 2 activations being up, there is a chance that I can stop their endurance loops. So they play the Outrider Encore, so they're threatening to combo, and my plan here is that if they're trying to win with Bristly Bill, they can't endurance loop to get all their lands back in too effectively because they're all tapped out here. So my plan is to see if they can time themselves out. And here we are with their opponent with just 3 minutes left on clock. I was hoping that also their blue sources might be painful enough that even if they did have Thassa's Oracle, they'd run out of life. But as you see here, it was just under 3 minutes. They do indeed have Thassa's Oracle in their deck, and they do win the game. So let's move on to match number 3. All right, match number 3, we're on the draw against what turned out to be Jeskai Control with Energy. We kept a 3-lander with Aether Vial because of the Witch Enchanters, which just seems like a fine hand in general. Turned out to be pretty good considering we're in a control matchup. So our opponent just leading with some card advantage and Preordain and just holding up a red mana. So I am expecting a removal spell for my Stoneforge here, but because I have 2, the second one's kind of protected by being able to be vialed in. So I do play out the first one to get Kaldra and just kind of ask my opponent to answer this first Stoneforge, which they do. So here the vial ticks up to 2. I'm just going to cast White Orchid Phantom to get card advantage out of my Flagstones of Trokair and a little ramp. They do have a counterspell for it. So again, like kind of just asking my opponent to answer things and use up their spells now so that hopefully I can get Kaldra into play with the second Stoneforge. And our opponent just passes back, not doing much. So I do vial in the Stoneforge and just hope to get to untap with it. Opponent tunes the narrative twice, trying to dig for a removal spell for the Stoneforge, and they don't find it. So here I just get the Lion Sash in case they've got any graveyard shenanigans, and we are going to get Kaldra to play here. I do tick the vial up to 3 because I have the Flickerwisp in hand with the Witch Enchanter, so that could answer something I'm not expecting, or otherwise drawing the Recruiter of the Gods also a good reason to tick vial up 3. So here I just get the Kaldra out, play out the Lion Sash as an extra threat, and click through my combat because I'm dumb. So this whole game, keep in mind, our opponent should be at 5 lower life, but I messed up. Our opponent does have a Wrath of the Skies. I choose to use my vial to put the Flickerwisp in because the Flickerwisp can protect my Stoneforge because it will come back in the end step after the Wrath is resolved. So my game plan now is to ride this Kaldra to victory. So the Stoneforge is going to get me Maul and Skyclaves, which is going to make my Kaldra what should be a 2-turn clock if my opponent was on 13 like they were meant to be. I do get another Aether Vial, so I get to use that to put the Maul on my Stoneforge because I figured diversifying my threats against in this face of removal seems pretty good. If our opponent does have a Wrath, they're probably going to kill the Maul with it as well anyway, and if they don't, then I just use the equip to move it onto the Kaldra anyway. Now, worth noting that this still ends up being a 2-turn clock now, despite missing Kaldra. They do have Wrath of the Skies, but they don't have enough mana to get rid of them all as well, so I get to move to the Kaldra and hit them down to 1. So if they have anything here, I can't flash in my Samwise, I couldn't play my Recruiter. All they have is a Dress Down, which does mean they can now kill the Kaldra Germ if they find something for it, but they do not. So we win game number 1. Let's move on to Sideboard. sideboarding. My sideboarding is Jeskai Energy Control. Trim 2 Solitudes because I don't have a lot of creatures, and which also means it gets Trim and Ephemerate, which is also bad in the face of counter magic. Kind of okay in the face of removal. Cutting the 4 Wild Good Phantoms, I don't think their mana's that disruptible, and ramping ourselves and having a flying first strike threat is fine, but not amazing. I just tend to end up cutting this unless I need to be blowing up my opponent's lands, or unless I don't need to sideboard too much. It's kind of good for game 1 for ramp and for interesting disruption. And Charming Prince doesn't look too impressive here, so I cut that because I want to bring in Sanctifier on Vex for Flage, Guardian of Faith, and Flare of Fortitude for sweepers, Disruptor Flute for potential planeswalkers like Fairy, as well as just like naming Wrath of the Skies or Supreme Boat to make cost more, and the Wandering Emperor just for a nice mid-range grindy tool. So let's go to game number 2. So we'll be on the draw for game number 2. This hand looks good. It's a similar like Aether Vial, Stoneforge kind of hand with the Wandering Emperor for getting grindy later on, and Guardian of Faith to protect from sweepers. Phelia is a fantastic first draw. Tamio is going to be a bit annoying to try and deal with early on, but that is fine. We'll get the aggression going soon enough. I was probably meant to play the Witchblessed Meadow as my turn 1 land. This is something that I try to keep in mind. If I play this untapped to like play an Aether Vial turn 1, it means turn 2 I can play an untapped land and not be telegraphing Failure as much. But here I don't have much choice other than just doing this because the Flagstones as a land would force me to use it straight away. So we just Vial in the Giver, trying to bait removal, Flash in the Failure. They have nothing for it, which is really interesting. Before the Vial takes up though, they do shot in Sacred Foundry, as they do have Flame in order to kill Giver and the Vial, which is a little annoying, but it's fine. We will play out the Stoneforge. Important to know I did this before playing the land, so I can shoot it for the Kaldra and then get my Surveil and not shoot it after the Surveil. I do choose to bin the Witch Enchanter, and Phelia gets in, and it turns out it was kind of all for naught because, or maybe I should have played the second Flagstones post-combat, because yeah, it did just ruin my Surveil there potentially by flickering the Stoneforge. My opponent found a Flame in order to kill Phelia and flick their Tamio, but Stoneforge does live. They prioritize killing Phelia over Stoneforge, so now Kaldra is going to take down Tamio, and similar to the previous game, because we did get to flicker our Stoneforge, we have Maul the Skyclaves again, so our plan again is to suit up Kaldra and turn it into a lethal threat. Now, I could have used the Kaldra to attack our opponent and put them closer to death, but I did prioritize getting rid of the Tamio, because this is still a 2-turn clock with the Stoneforge getting in as well. And here I'm actually choosing to hold up Guardian of Faith, because if our opponent does nothing, they're dead, and if they do have a sweeper, Guardian of Faith means we win. So they do have the dress down, meaning our Guardian of Faith doesn't get to do its thing here, but looks like our opponent has nothing to follow up with on it again, so we do just win game number 2 pretty freely. So there's a nice 2-1. Let's get into match number 4. Okay, so we are against Dimir Control, I think. We do get to go first, and we end up keeping a 6 that is kind of, again, just a Aether Vial Stoneforge hand. This makes the prospect of cutting Stoneforge look a little worse, because we do tend to lean on it a fair bit in a lot of these games. Like, this league is kind of telling us why Kaldra Stoneforge is so important, because we do win a lot of games with it. Like, this game here, we didn't even get the Kaldra, we got the Lion Sash, because I wasn't sure what my opponent was on. The Undercity Sewers made me think they were on the Goyo's Atraxa deck, so I did get the Lion Sash to protect against that, but it looks like they missed their second land drop and just decided to concede the game, which I'll take it. Let's go on to sideboarding. So I decided to hinge my bets a little bit, because I didn't know quite if they were a reanimated deck yet. If I knew that for sure, then Containment Priest and Hallowed Moonlights look really good, but otherwise I kind of verged in the middle, where Sanctifier and Vex good against the recursion stuff and against removal. Guardian of Faith and Flare of Fortitude are just good against removal, and the Wandering Emperor is just a good grindy card, and the Phantoms don't look too impressive. If they were blue-black, these aren't that great. If they are on Goyo's tracks, their meta base can be kind of weak to Phantoms, so that might be something to consider. And Charming Prince and Flickerwisp with just the fringe cuts around the side. This was kind of speculative, once again, trying to work out for game number 2 what our opponent's actually on before committing fully into a sideboard plan for game 3 once we know exactly what they're on. So let's get into game number 2. So on the draw, we see a 7 that's, again, kind of mopey, but it does have double Giver and Stoneforge Mystic, so it has a plan. The Ephemerate can help protect our stuff if need be, depending on how the game plays out. So our opponent leads with the turn 1 Fatal Push, and here I just decided to play out the Surveil land, take a turn off, play out the Giver Runes. There was an option to play an untapped land to hold up Ephemerate to protect the Giver Runes, but I figured with Flare of Fortitude, even if the Giver dies, I'm kind of okay with it. I'm just really trying to bait removal here. So now we will play out the Stoneforge, holding up Giver and Ephemerate to protect it, and our opponent has consigned to memory for Stoneforge's trigger. So that is actually kind of fine, since we do have the Ephemerate to get a new trigger off of it, while our opponent just plays out a Cyclog. So I'm going to use this opportunity to Ephemerate my Stoneforge, and here we get to see one of the fun tricks with Stoneforge and Ephemerate. So I'm going to get the Kaldra with Stoneforge, and then I'm going to activate the Stoneforge, putting the Kaldra in while the Ephemerate rebounds on the stack, and then I will will rebound the Ephemerate and flicker the Stoneforge to get another piece of equipment out of it. If I hadn't activated it there, it would have been summoning Sick and knocking up the Kaldra into play. So similar to the last round against Jeskai, my plan here is just to ride this Kaldra to victory, because again, these like blue-based decks don't tend to have a great way to deal with the Kaldra. I think blue-black probably has a worse time than the Jeskai list that does have the white mana. So our opponent's sack with Psychic Frog. They try to threaten to kill a Stoneforge by discarding a card, which is kind of what I was hoping for, and I just used the Giver to protect it. And our opponent has Toxic Deluge, which unfortunately Flare of Fortitude does protect from, which is why we have the Guardian of Faith in the sideboard, because it can protect from Toxic Deluge and all this stuff, where the Flare of Fortitude can't. But I've just got a Lion Sash to back it up, and I'm just going to start exiling a bunch of cards from their grave. The Lion Sash being in our deck as a shootable card is another reason why I didn't need to bring in the Containment Priest style stuff, which is kind of bad if they are on this kind of deck, but really good if they're on the Goryo's deck. But my opponent just plays out a Subtlety, chooses not to jump off the Lion Sash, just plays it as a way to hopefully survive the following turn. I'm going to flash in Solitude, baiting interaction. They do have the counterspell. So now I get to just play my 7th land and move the Kaldra onto the Lion Sash, which is why I was baiting out that counterspell from the Solitude, because this is a Elite Race. Trample past the Subtlety and kill them. So that is a quick 2-0 against Demir Control. So we're currently 3-1. Let's move on to the 5th and final match. All right, this is the final match. We are on the draw against Affinity, which we work out pretty quick with our opponent's turn 1. We kept a hand that again looks kind of mopey, but it does have Exuberant to Phelia, so we're kind of just hoping to draw anything to work with this Phelia. And our opponent has a very quick start, and the Aether Spell Bomb that is a one-off shootable card in the deck in their opening hand is kind of annoying, to be honest. And they do have Kappa Cannoneer here. So at this point, my Moto Replay chooses to bug out and not show the rest of the game. My plan was just to flash in Phelia and try and start getting value, but our opponent does have a Kappa Cannoneer, and the game does play out for a bit, but basically Kappa Cannoneer just ends up killing us. They have Lava Spell Boots for it, the Urza Saga chooses for a Shadow Spear, so that game's over pretty quick. By the time we get to enough mana to do Pitch Cast, Solitude, and pay 4 for Ward, they put the Lava Spur Boots on the Kappa Cannoneer, so I'd have to pay 5. So yeah, that was a very non-game one against Affinity. So let's go on to the sideboard. Okay, so I end up cutting the entire Stoneforge package and a Giver of Runes, because I don't really need protection, and I'm not protecting the Stoneforge, so it doesn't matter. As good of a clock as the Stoneforge package is, everything else is kind of still good. Like, you can trim around Recruiter and Phelia, maybe more Givers, a Vial, Charming Prince, but White Orchid Phantom I think is pretty good at killing Urza Saga. Witch Enchanter is obviously very good, and we never cut them anyway because they actually land. Solitude looks pretty good. Skyclave looks good. Interrupters maybe cuttable, like maybe it's a way to not trim the Stoneforge package. These are 7 cards, so finding 7 of these cards to cut starts hurting a bit, and I do want to bring in most of these. So Wrath of the Skies I definitely want to bring in as a way to mop up their early aggression. Emperor is a good removal spell that once we turn the corner is going to be very powerful. Dark is obviously a home run. Hallowed Moonlight can stop the Saga construct tokens, which this isn't a card we need to bring in, but I am choosing to bring in. And Disruptor Flute can stop Urza Saga, as well as a few other things of theirs, which again, this isn't a card you necessarily need to bring in, so maybe my sideboarding's wrong here, but this is what I've chosen doing this match. So let's go on to game number 2. All right, for game number 2 on the play, we keep a hand that doesn't do anything except for Wrath of the Skies, but I am keeping because Wrath of the Skies should be incredible against them. So they lead with a turnaround, Emery Lurker of the Lock, which from game 1 they look like classic aggro affinity, but here Emery's a weird choice that I wasn't expecting. And we do also see a Metallic Rebuke in the graveyard, which is scary, and they once again have their 1-up Aether Spell Bomb, which is just good against us. So here I'm glad I brought in the Disruptor Flute, because I am just going to Disruptor Flute the Emery, because my plan is to turn off the Emery and then Wrath of the Skies. So I probably should have Disruptor Fluted my own turn, but I wanted to bait the Emery. I was hoping they'd bobble in my end step and then I could Disruptor Flute Ben, but I didn't get to. So my plan was Disruptor Flute the Emery and then Wrath of the Skies the whole board, including the Treasure Vault, but they did have another Metallic Rebuke to counter the Wrath of the Skies. So now we are very much on the back, especially because they just drew an Urza Saga. So now they have a real clock online, because before this was kind of looking like they were trying to grind with me, which I'm more than happy with that. So here I play out Recruiter of the Guard. I could have held up White for Ephemerate, but I'm choosing to hold up the Ghost Quarter to get rid of the Urza Saga. So I do get Kataki here, which should be able to wipe out a bunch of their board. They do have a Thought Monitor to follow up, and a Springleaf Drum, which is kind of an interesting choice because they are going to have to pay for it next turn when the Kataki comes down. They have a pretty big attack here. I choose not to block anything because when I want to use this Ephemerate with this Recruiter to kind of buy myself back into the game. So I play out the Kataki here, and my opponent tries to dismember my Kataki. So I do try and Ephemerate to protect it, and they have a Force Negation. So I Ghost Quarter my own planes to get an untapped White Source to Ephemerate once again. So this has left them empty-handed, so I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot here. The reason, by the way, I was holding up Ephemerate was because of the Aether Spellbomb. I wanted a way to protect Kataki from the Spellbomb. So here the Kataki's resolved, and now my opponent has to pay for a bunch of stuff. And because I did use the Ephemerate, now I get to Ephemerate the Recruiter of the Guard in my upkeep, cheap when it rebounds, which is why I kept the Recruiter around the previous turn. So our opponent sacks off a bunch of their board and leaves themselves with a Nettlecyst, a Thought Monitor, and still this damn Aether Spell Bomb. I don't want to take this big attack because the Thought Monitor is flying, so I do choose to chop block with Kataki, which might have been wrong, but again, the Recruiter I want to use as a tutor spell. And I've worked out that what I want to get first is I want to get a Witch Enchanter so I can play this Wandering Emperor. Or if I draw a land, I'm just going to cast a Witch Enchanter. Turns out I draw a Witch Enchanter for turn, so my plan here is to make them think they've got a lethal combat, let them attack, flash in Wandering Emperor, take down Thought Monitor, gain some life, and see how we go from there. So I do block first. Here comes the Wandering Emperor. Unfortunately, I realized after I decided this is my plan that they just get to Aether Spellbomb, bounce their Thought Monitor, which means I don't gain the 2 life, which actually puts us in a pretty rough spot, especially because they draw Urza Saga again, and they have a Springleaf Drum, and they get to replay the Thought Monitor. So here I draw Solitude, which is irrelevant. I'm just going to blow up the Nettlecyst with my Witch Enchanter, and my opponent has a Dismember for the Witch Enchanter. So despite killing the Thought Monitor, I make a Samurai token, and I'm just probably going to lose this Urza Saga no matter what. But they have the Shadow Spear, so I am actually just dead. So that was a 3-2 lead, going 0-2 in that last round against Affinity. Let's go to the wrap-up. Okay, so what did we think of the list? I think I'm pretty happy with a lot of what's going on here. A lot of the 4-ofs I'm happy with, like 4 Giver, 4 Vial, 4 Phelia, 4 Stoneforge, 4 Phantom, 4 Witch Enchanter, 4 Solitude is really good. I'm really happy with those numbers. Really happy with the Stoneforge package. I think Lion Sash is a good utility card for certain matchups we need, like Yawgmoth and stuff. The Maul of Skyclaves is very powerful. I think Phelia getting through is pretty important in the current build, and Maul just makes that happen more often. So I think it works so well with one of our most powerful cards that it is just worth having. And then Kaldra is obviously the reason to be running the Stoneforge package at all. I could see running 4 Ephemerates. I'm happy with 3 because sometimes you just draw them when your board's already been murdered and they suck, but they are very powerful. I could see wanting a 4. Currently I'm happy on 3. Same with Recruiter of the Guard. I don't really want to go up to 4. I'm kind of happy being on 3 game 1 and then boarding down to 2 a lot of the time, especially because my plan isn't to just bring in an Ethersworn Canonist and need to find off Recruiter. I tend to be bringing it in with 2 other cards that are tutorable versions of the effect. So, sorry, Containment Priest, not Ethersworn Canonist. So I think 3 Recruiter and then going down to 2 post board in a lot of games makes a lot of sense. As for the one-offs, Skyclave Apparition I think is very powerful. I boarded out a decent amount, even though I didn't board it out much this league. Just sometimes you board into stuff that is better to find to answer things you need to answer, but game 1 it just answers everything. You know, post board you might be bringing in Hallowed Moonlight, Containment Priest, Ethersworn Canonist, you know, Wrath of the Skies, Disruptive Flute for the One Ring, stuff like that. But game 1 you need an answer to the One Ring, I think, and this is the best we get. I like having this as a flexible answer. Aven Interrupter is one that it's close to playable. The reason I'm running it is to have a main deck out to Ruby Storm, so as long as that's a deck or as long as we don't have better answers, I do like this one of Aven Interrupter. It's just fine in most other matchups. As for these give us a lot of options, as I've spoken about with our Aether Vial Recruiter Guard lines. I think if you try, I actually just want these to be 3 Flickerwisps. Flickerwisp is so powerful with Witch Enchanter, and also very powerful with Phelia, because you play a turn 2 Phelia, you untap, cast Flickerwisp, flicker something, attack a Phelia, blink Flickerwisp, which then comes back in the end step of a Phelia, which means that its ability exiles something until the next end step, which means you get to exile one of your opponent's permanents until their end step, so you get to deny them of one of their lands. Very, very strong. I think I actually do want 3 of these, again, to combo with Witch Enchanter and to combo with Phelia. Otherwise, pretty happy with everything. Like the mana base. Obviously, drawing Elegant Parlor is bad, but I like it as a value thing for when we're blowing up our flagstones. The sideboard, the Wandering Emperor is cute. Maybe it's too cute. I could see not having this slot. Guardian of Faith, again, it's our only answer to Toxic Deluge and to Always Dust, but we can kind of just recover from those as well. If we're hurting Toxic Deluge, they're paying enough life that maybe we can just beat them to death, so maybe we don't need this. Maybe these 2 slots could be like Drown of Magistrates or something, would be my next consideration. Everything else in sideboard I'm happy with. Wrath of the Skies, kind of necessary. Like, we would have dominated Affinity if they didn't have a counterspell, which I wasn't really expecting. Good against Elves, good against the Boros Energy deck. Flare of Fortitude has never been super impressive, but I feel like it's card we just need for, like, you know, versing Jeskai control. It protects us from their Wrath of the Skies, so I do think this is worthwhile having, and I've started bringing it in just against spot removal, and I haven't seen it do anything yet because I haven't been drawing it when it's been relevant, so we'll keep that one in mind. Sanctifier is just always good. Kataki is a tutor target for Affinity is very good. The Containment Priest is a solid tutor target. I really like having the Hallowed Moonlight, so I'm not just bringing in one tutorable version of the effect, I'm bringing in a bulk of them. The Canonist for Ruby Storm is just so that we can, on turn 3, if we play Elegant Parlor, we can play Recruit the Guard, tutor for something to turn off Ruby Storm, and it's just kind of a good card against a lot of other matchups as well, like Prowess. And then the Disruptive Flutes, I think the One Ring is so painful for us to overcome that drop fluid is very powerful and also just good against combo deck. So very happy with a lot of the 75. I think the only things I would be changing again are maybe these last two sideboard slots and then just having 3 Flickerwisps here. Everything else I'm pretty locked in on for the time being. So with all that said, thank you for watching. I think that was a pretty good league overall. 3 and 2 is not bad, only losing to Nadu, which a lot of people expect is getting a ban sooner rather than later, so maybe that's not something we need to worry about too much. And to Affinity, just having very strong draws and having counter magic at the right time, which also that matchup's just kind of fast and kind of scary, so not too upset with that. So until next time, everybody, bye-zy.